Alright, we're here to do greatest common factors with little Norman. Once again, she still misses you. Alright, so greatest common factors builds off of your knowledge on factors. Like we discussed on Wednesday, greatest common factors is when we're given two numbers and we're asked to figure out which is the biggest factor that they have in common, so that they share, or that is the same amongst them. So that means that we're always given a minimum of two numbers to compare the factors for. Let's start off with 12 and 8. If you are asked to find the greatest common factor of two numbers, the easiest way to start until you get more comfortable with factors is to list each number's factors. So let's start with 12. We always know that 1 is a factor of any number. What about 2? Yeah, 2 is also a factor of 12. 3 is also a factor of 12. What about 4? 4 is also a factor of 12. And then we have 6 and 12. Now let's have a look at 8. We know that 1 must be a factor of 8. Let's think about this one in terms of pairs now. 1's pair is what? In other words, 1 multiplied by what is going to give me 8. And we know it's 8, so 8 must be a factor of 8. Makes sense, right? 8 fits perfectly into 8. What about 2? 2 in fact does fit into 8 because 8 is an even number. So let's think about 2's pair. 2 is paired up with what number? In other words, 2 multiplied by what is going to give me 8. And we know that that number must be 4. So here we have 4 factors of 8. There are no other factors because we have gone through and we've paired everything. You can even count up and go, okay, is 3? What about 4? Yeah, we've got 4. 5 and 6, well, no, they're not factors either. Now to figure out the greatest common factor, we go through each of our listed factors and circle the ones that they have in common. So they have 1 in common. They also have 2 in common. They do not have 3 in common. They both have 4 in common. They do not have 6 in common. They do not have 8 in common, nor do they have 12 in common. Now, based on the ones that we've circled, we have to look at these numbers and say which is the greatest factor. So, looking at these numbers, 1, 2, and 4, which is the largest of those numbers? And we know, based on number lines, that it's 4. So the greatest common factor of 8 and 12 is 4. Let's try to do a little bit of a trickier one. Let's try 24 and 30. Using what you know about factors, we take this one step at a time, and once again, just list each of the factors for 24 and 30. Let's start with 24. We know that 1 must be a factor. What would be paired up with 1? 1 multiplied by what gives me 24? 24, of course. 2 also fits perfectly into 24 because 24 is an even number. So 2 would be a factor of 24. And paired with 2 would be 12 because 2 times 12 is 24. And therefore they're both factors. 3 also goes perfectly into 24. And if you need to use your multiplication chart for a little while, please do so. 3 is paired up with 8 because 3 multiplied by 8 gives me 24. 4 also fits into 24. 4 multiplied by 6 gives me 24. So 4 and 6 are also both factors. 5 does not fit in, so we actually do not have to carry on our list of numbers because we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4. We know that 5 doesn't work, and then 6, which is our next number on the number line, appears with the coupling of 4. So here we have all of are factors of 24. It's quite a few of them. Let's try 30. 1 is always a factor, so 1 is a factor of 30, and that's paired up with 30. Since 30 is an even number, 2 is also a factor, and 2 is paired up with 15. 3 is also a factor, so it's paired with 10, because 3 multiplied by 10 gives me 30. What about 4? 4, if I look at my multiplication chart or think about my 4 times tables, I know that 4 actually does not go into 30. In other words, 30 is not divisible by 4. What about 5? Well, yeah, we know that 5 is, and 5 is paired with 6, because 5 times what gives me 30? Well, 6. So here again, I know that I've listed all of the possible factors of 30 because I've gone 1, 2, 3, 5, and then my next number up is 6, but it's already a pair. So here I am totally confident that I have listed all the possibilities that are factors of 30, because you do not want to miss any factors when we're dealing with the greatest common factor. Now let's go ahead and do the second step where we circle each of the common factors. So common factors are always 1. We have 2 for both of them. We also have 3. 4 is not a common factor of either of them. 6, however, is. And then going further on, we actually do not have any other common factors between them. So which of the numbers that we have circled are the largest numbers? It is 6, because 6 is further to the right on the number line. So here we have the greatest common factor of 2 numbers. So I'm going to throw a little curveball and say, give me the greatest common factor of 3 numbers. So please give me the greatest common factor of 12, 16, and 28. So once again, even though it's 3 numbers, which may seem confusing, we can go through and take it step by step by finding each of the factors for these numbers. So for 12, we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4, just like what we've mentioned up here. For 16, we have 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4, and those are the only factors. For 28, we have 1 and 28, 2 and 14, and 4 and 7, and those are the factors of 28. Now we will go through and we'll circle which ones they have in common. Once again, it's 1 as well as 2. They do not all have 3 in common, nor do they have 12 in common or 6 in common. However, they do all have 4 in common. So when we go through and we have a look, we have to have a look for the number that we've circled that is the greatest and which each of them have. And that number for these 3 is 4. The next video will be looking at equivalent fractions, and then we'll start to simplify and reduce fractions.